including 377 deaths, and over 95,000 Missourians have been tested at this time. I do want to make a comment on the death total today. Some of that is due to reporting actually since May the 1st. So it's been a lag in reporting is what happened to that, mainly from the St. Louis region. So though I believe there's an additional 19 today, but again, that was from the first of the month until today on that. COVID-19 continues to be our main focus. However, there are still many other things happening that we must be aware of. Yesterday, several areas in Missouri were struck by severe weather, leaving many with damage to their homes and thousands without power. The Lebanon area was hit especially hard yesterday. Winds up to 80 to 90 miles per hour caused severe damage throughout the town, overturning vehicles, trees, utility poles, and leaving major damage to over 50 homes. Hundreds of homes and businesses in Lebanon also sustained damage. In Bates County, a person was killed after severe winds caused a tree to fall on their home. Severe winds also derailed 25 rail cars carrying hazardous material just west of Campbell in southeast Missouri. The Department of Natural Resources responded to the scene to assist. No hazardous materials were spilled, and the rail cars are being secured and removed from the scene. SEMA, which is already activated due to COVID-19, also called in additional personnel to assist with last night's storms. Yesterday serves as a reminder that even as we continue to address COVID-19, state government must still be prepared for any other crisis of emergency that may arise, especially this time of the year when severe weather and flooding is also apparent. I also want to thank all the first responders from last night. The utility workers were out there last night and today for their work that they were doing over the storms that crossed our state yesterday. It is a balancing act between COVID-19, reopening the economy, severe weather, and many other things on a daily basis. But I want to assure you, we are prepared in the state of Missouri. Yesterday, I was asked about the McChrystal Group assisting our fusion cell and want to clarify the role of that group. The McChrystal Group does not play a role in creating our models. This group is a project management piece of the fusion cell. The models are created by academics and medical professionals. And today, Director Richardson is here to talk more about that and an update on his work. So, Todd?
Governor, thank you, and thank you all for being here today. The state of Missouri has continued to work as a cross-functional team of experts from across state agencies. We've been working in partnership with our private sector healthcare leaders to better inform our response to COVID-19. Every single state department has been involved in this effort, with many participating daily. We've been working along the pillars of the Governor's Show Me Strong initiative, including working on testing, better use of our data, personal protective equipment, and ensuring that our healthcare system has the capacity to meet demand. This team has been working tirelessly to ensure that Missouri is prepared for any eventuality and is making the best use of our available data. As the Governor has said many times, the state will continue to use a data-driven approach. Now, that approach does not rely on any single point of data or metric, but rather uses multiple data points to give us the richest possible picture and understanding of COVID-19 in Missouri. That data includes syndromic surveillance compiled by the Department of Health and Senior Services, our hospitalized COVID-19 cases and deaths. It includes our testing capacity and percent positive rates across our state. It also includes rich data on our healthcare system capacity, and it also includes mathematical disease modeling. Later today, a detailed update on many of those data points will be posted to the Missouri Department of Health website. Some key points from that available data. First, on hospitalized cases. The number of hospitalized COVID cases across our state has declined over the last 2 weeks. down nearly 17% since the high water mark in early April. That decline has been more pronounced in regions other than St. Louis, where we are seeing a pronounced flattening but not a steep decline. Testing volume has increased over the last several days, while at the same time the percent positive rate of those tests continue to decline. And our emergency department utilization data shows a marked decline in individuals presenting to emergency departments with influenza and COVID-like symptoms. It also demonstrates that not every region of our state is the same, and that some areas of our state are experiencing significant decreases in case growth, while others are still experiencing growth. In addition to those key data points and metrics, Missouri has been working hand in hand with researchers at Washington University and the Missouri Hospital Association to create a regional model to inform the state's response. That model is based on hospitalized COVID cases. It is designed to present a range of plausible outcomes based on our current knowledge of COVID-19 in Missouri. It is not designed to be a crystal ball that can predict the future. The model allows us to see the date and the magnitude of peaks across our state and gives us an estimate of the effective transmission rate across a given region. That modeling data shows that overall, Missouri has significantly reduced the rate of transmission. It does not show that this event is over or that it is behind us. Continued common sense social distancing, increased testing, and improved containment strategies will be needed to ensure that we continue on this positive trajectory and that we ensure a sustained recovery.
Todd, thank you very much. Thank you for your continuing work for the state. Also, Dr. Williams is here today. He'll also be available for questions towards the end of it. As I said yesterday, we are on the road to recovery, and we must continue taking steps to protect ourselves and others throughout the recovery process. With that said, we encourage Missourians to safely re-engage into the economy. We appreciate all the Missouri businesses that have respected social distancing orders, followed the guidelines, and taken additional precautions to protect their employees and the public. And now, more than ever, these businesses need our support to get back on their feet. So I encourage all of you to shop local, support Missouri-based businesses. This will be the key to the future of opening up our state and getting our economy back in Missouri, but it'll be driven by Missourians who are willing to shop local. This will be critical to stimulating our economy and getting us back to where we need to be. Today, Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe is here to talk more about Buy Missouri and a program and how you can help support your local businesses here in Missouri. Mike?
Well, thank you, Governor. And as a small business person yourself and my small business background, on behalf of businesses and the thousands of employees and Missourians across the state, we thank you for opening back up the economy and doing it responsibly and safely. Buy Missouri, as you know, was created back in 2018 by then Lieutenant Governor Mike Parson to actively promote Missouri businesses and manufacture products in Missouri. Buy Missouri continues to grow because of the dedication and efforts of the members whose hard work supports the state's economy. Recently, the program reached a milestone by signing up our 300th member. I'm proud to share today our 300th member in the Buy Missouri program is Sioux Chief, located in Peculiar, Missouri. Sioux Chief is a family-owned and operated business since 1957. Sioux Chief is a global plumbing supply manufacturer who brings new, rough plumbing products ideas to market. From concept to completion, Sioux Chief is home to over 600 employees. Today, there are now 305 total Buy Missouri members enrolled, covering 81 counties across our state, with some of our newest members coming from Wellsville, Henley, Poplar Bluff, and Springfield. Buy Missouri provides jobs to over 13,100 Missourians, which equates to nearly $400 million in annual payroll. Those are salaries going to our friends, our families, and neighbors all across Missouri. Missouri Greatness is also part of the program that we follow in Lieutenant Governor's office, a non-Buy Missouri company, and there are many of them doing great things across our state. For instance, this morning you may have seen Pfizer, which is a global company with headquarters, or major campus, I should say, in Chesterfield, County part of St. Louis, has been identified as one of 3 initial manufacturing centers for COVID-19 vaccine production. Buy Missouri companies also stepped up during the COVID-19 challenge. Step and Pull, one of our newest members from Greene County, manufactures foot-operated door openers. Aristos Beverage in Camdenton, Missouri, donated their canned water to mid-county fire protection districts and their communities. Many Buy Missouri companies stepped up to meet the coronavirus challenge head-on and changed their typical business models to create hand sanitizer. J. Rieger Company and Restless Spirits Distilling in Kansas City, Wood Hat Distillery in New Florence, Missouri, Gunnet Energy and Still 630 Distillery in St. Louis all provided products for first responders and Missourians all across our state. Buy Missouri members such as Trip NT from Kansas City and Ortman Woodcraft in Cape Girardeau have been producing face shield and similar PPEs to assist the state's medical communities. Others have gone to work creating products to protect staff and customers, such as Impact Signs in Sedalia and Pro Design Signs in Eldon, who have developed pandemic products and signage. I also wanted to thank and recognize the Department of Economic Development for creating the online tool that puts Missouri companies that manufacture products and Missouri companies that have need for products together to buy and sell their PPE. In closing, Governor, you've said on numerous occasions, we have learned not to rely on products made outside of this country through this crisis. I can assure you, Governor, Missouri companies and Buy Missouri members have stepped up and are ready. The importance of shopping and buying local has been highlighted by the COVID-19 pandemic. When we buy Missouri, we support our friends and neighbors. Doing so will be even more critical in the coming weeks and months. Thank you.
Lieutenant Governor, thank you very much. What an important program you're doing for the state of Missouri. And I also want to, they can go online also and go to Buy Missouri for that, or go to the Lieutenant Governor's office and be able to find out more information about what those businesses are.
BuyMissouri.net.
BuyMissouri.net. BuyMissouri.net. But let me tell you, it is such a crucial time in our state. Again, I want to emphasize, you know, if there's ever a time to maybe support them local business, and I know you have. I know Missourians have been doing that over the last 60 days. But now's the time we really need to support one another out there and support those mom and pop shops on Main Street and really make an effort to go out there and keep our economy going and taking care of our businesses here in our state. It's one of the most important things we can do in the coming weeks to show our support for our fellow Missourians. Tomorrow, we will have an update on child care and the federal funding available through the CARES Act to assist with this. Again, as we work through the reopening and the recovery process, I want to remind all Missourians to continue making safe, smart, and responsible choices and maintaining social distancing. This is the most important thing we can do to keep COVID-19 under control and stay on the path to recovery. Thank you again today, and God bless. Kelly, questions?
Yes.
Hi, Governor. The mayor of St. Louis, Lyda Krewson, is concerned about how the money, the federal money, is being divvied up. That she believes that St. Louis city of St. Louis should be getting more. Have you spoken with her and explained your position at this point?
Yeah, we've talked to the mayors, we've talked to the county executives, we've talked to several of them. I think there's probably a lot of attention being paid to the formula that was used to get the money out the door. The main thing we were trying to do was get that federal money to the local levels as soon as we could. As a matter of fact, we got that within 10 days and got it out there. It's really not about how the formula was. It was about the expenses you have at COVID-19. So it's a matter of getting the money out there. And at the end of the day, it has to be a reimbursement for COVID-19. So if you take St. Louis, the mayor up there is going to be a much different formula than what it's going to be in some small rural county as far as expenses go. So at the end of the day, I think it's important to realize the money is to be utilized to recover expenses to COVID-19, not somewhat to backfill the money. So whatever the formula was, that was originally was to get it out the door. And if there's more money coming down, we'll be able to utilize that. But there was different things in the guidelines of how we walked through that to get it done.
Governor, you mentioned the McChrystal Group.
Yes.
How much are they getting paid for their services?
I'm not for sure on that. I don't know. Todd, do you have that information? Let me let Todd speak to that.
Yeah, thanks for the question. The McChrystal Group's here at no expense to the state in partnership with the Missouri Foundation for Health, who's been engaged in public health response for a long time. We were able to bring them here, so it's not at any cost to the taxpayers.
Do you know how much the foundation is paying the McChrystal Group?
I don't know the answer to that.
Does the state have a contract with the McChrystal Group?
We do not have a contract with the McChrystal Group. There is a memorandum of understanding, as we normally have in these situations, that outline the roles and responsibilities of each group, though.
Governor, somewhat related to coronavirus, but a bit off topic. We saw the House debate today a big omnibus crime bill where it ranges from topics from punitive damages all the way to residency requirements for law enforcement. As a former legislator yourself, is this a responsible way to legislate?
Well, I'm not going to speak for the legislators because I'm not sure what all amendments were out there, and I don't know, so it'd be premature for me to even mention that. Look, the one thing I do know from the governor's role and from a legislator, omnibus bills are always some of those things that people try to put a lot of things in at the last, and a lot of times they die under their own weight or they have constitutional problems by the time they get to our office or something. So all of those things we'll be looking for as they put these omnibus bills back together. But the reality of it is we'll be very selective in those this year to make sure what all's in them. And if there's ever a time really to be as efficient as we can be, now's the time to be that with everything else going on in this state. I think it's important to do that. But I don't know what all's in there right now. And again, I won't comment on signing any bills or what I would approve until I see those bills on my desk.
A brief follow-up question in that regard. We've seen you veto larger bills like this in the past. Are you more apt to veto these larger omnibus bills?
Again, I'll just have to see what's in them. I'll just have to see what's in them. I don't know. This is unusual circumstances for all of us, all the things that are going in right now. The budget process is totally different than what it's ever been. So again, we're just going to have to walk through this as we get through this. I think, one, we're still all wondering what the federal government's going to do. What are they going to do to backfill some of this? So there's just a lot of moving parts to the budget, to the legislation right now. We'll just see how it all works out.
Governor, can you just give us a general sense of where you think the state is right now in terms of fighting the coronavirus?
Yeah, I think we're in good shape. I think when you compare us to other states, I think we did a lot of positive things early on. I think looking back on it now, I think we made a lot of moves correctly in this state of Missouri to help protect people in this state. And I think we're now starting to prove that all happened by the action we took early. I think having our own information in the state early on was crucial to make decisions, and as we see now, with the rates going down on the positive rates, even the death rate somewhat, which lags behind this, is we're moving in the right direction. And again, it's because we're making smart decisions, we're making informed decisions, and not just reacting to whatever the story might be of the day or whatever people might think. It's really based on that data, how we attack things and how we do that. The two main things that we're doing is the testing's picking up, which is extremely important. We can now target areas, box in, as Dr. Williams likes to refer to it, our nursing homes, wherever those outbreaks might be, we can get there at a pretty quick order now and we can test everybody. And we didn't have that availability 2-3 weeks ago. We do today. So that's a little bit of a game changer.
I actually have one more question about the McChrystal Group. Is the MOU that was mentioned, is that public information?
You know what? I'm not for. If it is, you can check with Kelly. She'll know there, somebody in our office, to see what it is. I'm not sure the details of it. Again, I think it's important to realize they're not working for the state of Missouri. They're an outside company working for an organization is what they're doing to help assist us with the fusion process. That's the way I understand it from a management role, but they're not working for the state in any fashion.
I believe this was asked yesterday and you weren't aware of the information, but maybe now that we're a day into the reopening, you may have a better sense of what businesses actually chose to reopen as you announced they were able to do so. Do you have a better understanding of the percentage of businesses?
I think yesterday you asked me for a percentage, and I don't know any more than I do today. I know a lot of business opened up. Again, I know a lot of them probably didn't, but I think the majority of them probably that was available to open, they did. And to want to go back and draw that business is there. So I think you're going to see it. Again, I think it's going to be a slow process, the way we're going to build back the economy. I think businesses are going to be opening every day, and people are going to be going back to work. And we hope to see those numbers, seeing people go back to work in the next week or two. We hope those numbers start changing quite a bit from the people on unemployment back to the workforce.
I've been talking for the last couple of days with some workers at the Triumph plant that are supposed to go back to work this week, and a lot of them are scared about potentially picking it up from somebody who's asymptomatic, infecting their families. I just wanted to know what you would say to them on a personal level as they're going back to work doing this job.
Look, I think hopefully the company's doing everything they can to protect the workers. Hopefully with Dr. Williams, us being able to go up there and identify who those people are that are positive and that you take them out of those scenarios. But the bottom line is you got to go back to work if it's safe to go back to work. We just can't leave that up to every individual, but if your company believes it's a safe environment for you and you believe it's a safe environment, then that's between you and the people you work for. If you don't want to go back to work, then you don't have to go to work back necessarily. There's other people out there probably, I'm sure, needing to hire people too. So, it's a question of between individuals and businesses how they approach that. But I don't think you're going to be able to say, I just don't feel comfortable going back to work, and you're going to be able to just stay at home. I just don't think you're going to be able to do that. And there's a lot of moving parts to that question you asked, but that's what I believe as a fundamental rule.
Governor, you laid out your legislative priorities at the beginning of session, and the session is now severely truncated. There's only a couple weeks left. So do you have a renewed legislative priorities? What do you hope to get across the finish line this year?
Look, we had a lot of new decision items with the budget last year when this all started out. The economy was looking better. There was a lot of things we were wanting to do to keep building on that economy that we wanted to do. The reality of it is things have totally changed. So a lot of those new decision items that we had in there from the governor's office simply have to be put on the back burner for right now, because it's more about just getting the money to balance the budget right now and to see how we proceed as much as we can. But we're all going to have to do with less. I don't care whether you're the departments out there, whether it's the governor's office, whether it's the legislators. We're going to have to work within the means we have. So a lot of the things that, I would have liked to have had in there is not going to be in there. And frankly, we put it on when we did the governor's amendment, we took a lot of it out because we knew we didn't have the money to pay for it.
Any other questions for Governor Parson? All right, Lieutenant Governor?
Good.
I got Williams, are there any questions for you? All right, Jacqueline.
Dr. Williams, yesterday you mentioned that asymptomatic people for COVID-19 were less contagious or somehow less apt to spread the virus. Could you elaborate on that and where you got that information?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. Let me just update you real quickly. We finished our testing at Triumph. We've done 2,367 tests. 412 have come back positive. There are a few more coming in from last Monday through Friday, which gives us a rate of around 16%, I believe, which is consistent with the CDC article that came out last week on the 19 states that have meat packing plants. And I think you ask a great question, and we're learning something new every day. If you'd asked me 3 weeks ago if we'd gone into a plant like this and seen this many asymptomatic people, we just didn't have that information. I'll be happy to provide you the articles that show that we think you're most infectious with COVID-19 when you're coughing, when you're producing, and which would make sense. It's transmitted by droplets, and so that makes sense. I think the great question going forward is just how infectious these pre-symptomatic people are. Now, I will tell you that we've been going in all weekend. We worked all weekend. And as we look at these people who are asymptomatic and go in and talk to them, we are finding that if you look at the 6 or 7 criteria the CDC now lists, that many of them are now telling us that they were, in fact, symptomatic. They might not have had a fever, but they had a cough or they had muscle aches. So I think one thing we're looking at, and I talked to them this morning, is I think one thing that's being revealed in this is that there are going to be more people who were pre-symptomatic and that is consistent with earlier data we saw. And so I'll be happy to give you that article, and there are numerous articles that make us think that remember the incubation time is 2 to 14 days. The median is 5.1 days, so that we usually think you're most infectious right around 5 days. But thank you for asking that.
The FDA is moving to be more stringent about antibody testing products. So what's the status of what we're using, and is it going to meet FDA guidelines? Yeah,
Philip, thanks. Great question. And the answer is yes. There are now 14 labs that have been approved by the FDA. And Disorn, the one we're using, I talked to Bill Whitmore today, is one of the 14 approved. We'll have the ability to do about 1,500 a day. The governor and I were on a conversation today we have every week, as we have for like the last 9 weeks, with county commissioner executives. And there's a lot of interest in spending that COVID-19 money on antibody testing. And so my message to all of those is that, as you know, Philip, the FDA put out yesterday, you got to be careful in what you buy and make sure that they're validated, and the FDA is requiring that. So my strong admonition would be, before you purchase, I would strongly encourage looking at the validation, and clearly the 14 that have been approved by the FDA, of which the state of Missouri's is one, which shouldn't be a shock since the president-elect of the American Public Health Laboratory Association is our head of our state lab. So.
And how many of those have been done at this point?
We're not set up yet. My best guess is 10 days before we'll be validated to offer that throughout the state.
So the initial guidance from Triumph to its workers on Sunday was that they could come back to work yesterday.
Yes.
And then that was changed last night, to my understanding, citing CDC guidelines. As far as I could tell, those CDC guidelines were updated on Sunday.
Mm-hmm, they were.
So why the communication mix-up there?
Yeah, I thought you would ask that. And the reason is that we had given them guidance all during the week. The company's been great about consulting. And so at one level, there was this concern that if we shifted the message, as we had given that message to them as late as Friday, on Sunday, it would be confusing. But I felt that, as I've always told you, we have to be nimble. We have to act. We have to be prepared to act immediately. So last night, we were on the phone going, no, you need to change your guidance and make it 10 days. Because the information from the CDC is just common. I just want to follow up, one thing that was asked to the governor. One thing I would say to these workers is just thank you. I mean, we've learned a lot about this virus. We know that perhaps 10 to 14% of cases are among healthcare workers, and we recognize those as heroes. We have the Blue Angels, and we have the Thunderbirds fly over New York. We have a B-2 fly over from Whiteman, fly over Kansas City. As I told Matt, I hope that B-2 turned right on its way back to Whiteman and flew over St. Joseph's. Because as you look at national stories of meat shortages, that some chains are saying you can only buy so much meat, just incredibly appreciative to the people at Triumph and our other meat pack. We have 12 or 14 here in Missouri who, just like others, go to work so that you and I can go to the grocery store this morning and get food. So just want to add that we all just incredibly appreciate what they're doing.
And then, sorry, just a quick clarification as well. I know that as part of the asymptomatic testing outside of Triumph, to my knowledge, the samples that were done in 12 counties across the state, I think it was like 4,000 tests. To my knowledge, for that, you just had to register. You didn't have to work at a specific plant. And so could you clarify why, for example, in Marshall, where they had 20 ConAgra workers test positive, they didn't get 3,000 tests or whatever specific for that?
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a lengthy answer because we're conflating things. The 12 counties we tested, even though one of them was Saline, where Cargill and ConAgra are, those had nothing to do with their plants. We were just going into communities that felt like they hadn't had as much robust testing in conversations I've had with them. In Saline, the health director, that was one of them. Perry County was one of them. The governor and I were on a phone call in which they said from Perry County, we wished we had more testing because people are coming across the bridge from Illinois. So that's how those counties were picked. And so that's that. Now, that's completely different than the testing we're doing in plants. And so we've been in Monotile County last week, checked everybody there. did 115 tests, 2 came back positive. Conagra had already tested their employees. Cargill had tested many of them, but not all of them. And then on Monday, we'll be in Milan and doing 1,500 tests that they've asked us to do. And I've got a phone call when I leave here with 3 more plants, our live animal food processing plants, that like us to test them. And again, because the governor said we now have this capacity. We can now do 60,000 tests a week here in Missouri. We've worked really, really hard to do that, and it's paid off. And so don't conflate those 2 groups, and I can see why you would, because we were testing in Saline County, and that's where those 2 plants are.
Dr. Williams, you just mentioned the 60,000 test capacity, but
Yeah.
can you clarify whether that takes into account whether labs have enough things like swabs and
Yeah.
reagents and other collection materials?
Yeah, that's a great question, Crystal, because to your point, the labs tell us they have the capacity to do the test, which is 60,000. But to your point, you have to have access to get a test, and then you have to have the sampling equipment. The best way I can answer that for you is we now have 151 mobile testing sites that weren't there on February 28th or 29th, which is a leap year. That is a testament to what this state was able to do because we wanted testing. So we have access. That's the first thing. The second thing is the best way I know to answer that question is up at Triumph, we were able to make a phone call and get 3,000 sampling kits in 12 hours. They got there in 12 hours. In Milan, we've made a phone call. We're getting 1,500 testing kits. Last week we did 2,000-something tests, 2,800 tests, and we got testing kits. So at this moment in time, and I've called LabCorp, Scott Zimmerman, the national director. He says they have the testing kits. So I understand you will hear pockets. I talk to Herb Kuhn every day. I talked to him this morning, the president of the Missouri Hospital Association, that you will hear pockets of people saying, well, wait a minute, we just can't get the sampling kits. But by and large, I don't think that's true. I wouldn't deny that there are certain places, but by and large, I'm told, and it's been my experience in the last 10 days, that more likely than not, we can usually get those.
So does the state have a reserve of those materials?
We have a reserve that we're using in our boxed-in therapy a lot, boxed-in treatment, and that runs from 2,000 to 5,000. And I'll be happy to share with you, we got a email from the White House, today's Tuesday, 5 days ago, promising a huge store that's on its way, and I'm happy to share that. That's public knowledge. I'm happy to share that with you. So I feel very good, and I understand your question because that's been a problem in the past. Based on what the White House is sending the state of Missouri, and based on what I'm hearing from our commercial lab partners, and Bill and I talk to them all the time, we think we're going to be in a very good place with our testing, our sampling kits.
I think the White House promising supplies is big news. Do you know when those supplies are supposed to reach Missouri?
Yeah, I saw the email traffic today, and Bill had given them an address, and it was going back between SEMA and Bill, that they were supposed to arrive. But I'll be glad to follow up with you when they actually hit the door. How's that?
Do you have a number as how many kits?
I did, but I just can't remember it in my head. It was pallets. I remember that, and there were so many in a pallet, and I just didn't do the math. I remember Bill emailing me going, now that's what you call a bunch.
I just wanted to give you the opportunity to clarify as well. You mentioned asymptomatic testing and then also mentioned that some people are pre-symptomatic or they show symptoms at different times. So can you clarify whether people are actually asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic and how much we know about that?
Yeah, I think going forward we're going to learn a lot more. I really do. But, one of the things we learned from King County in Washington is that when you went in and you identified people as asymptomatic, and tested them, about 80% of these people living in a nursing home would go on to develop symptoms. They would start coughing. They'd have fevers and all that. As we're in Triumph, so far in our case contacts this weekend, we're finding that of those people that we said were asymptomatic, when you go in and actually talk to them after they've tested positive, I looked at the numbers this morning. I want to say it was 49% are saying, oh, well, now that you asked me, yeah, I did have this or that. And so that's part of what we're learning. And then the next question would be that we're going to learn is, of that cohort, how many and how infectious are they during that time between when we test them and they become symptomatic? So, again, thank you very much. I want to thank you for your reporting yesterday. It was kind of a complex thing about testing with the large numbers. I mean, you could do a headline today, state cuts new cases by half in one day, and as we've talked about, that really wouldn't be representative. But I read your articles and watched, and I felt like you did a fair job of representing kind of what that spike was, because we're down to 163 new cases a day, which is where we were for a good while before that. So I do thank you for that.
All right, just finishing up. We done here today, I think, with questions. Thanks everybody for being here today. We'll be back tomorrow. I think the child care will be a big issue for a lot of people around the state, so hopefully we'll get some details about that. We did also earlier today talk to the federal coalition in D.C. about some of the issues we're facing here in Missouri that they're working on. So good conversations there, trying to see what the next move might be on the federal level. But again, we're in constant contact with them. So I appreciate their involvement, what they're trying to do to help us all here in the state of Missouri. And all of them have been very supportive of everything we've been doing in the state and trying to work with us ever since we've started making the calls with them on a weekly basis. So again, thanks everybody for being here today. Thank you.